Hey guys, it's your girl La, aka Pella Talk, and welcome to another episode of Whatever You Say podcast. If you're tuned in today, that must mean that you're curious, you're open minded, and you're ready to learn something new. This is a space for open perspective, deep conversation, and for educating the race. So buckle up, sit back, and let's go on this journey together. It's whatever you say. Yeah. Oh my.
It's whatever you say.
What's up, guys? Like I said, it's your girl La. Welcome to another episode today. I'm very excited. 2 weeks ago we had Trill AC on the show from cruise season, and we have another great guest this week. As some of you may know, but you already know. Before we get into that, you know what time it is. So we're gonna go on our Whatever You Say Facebook like page, and we're gonna share this to our direct pages. So thank you for your support. Thanks for tuning in again. So here we go. I'm getting better at this, guys. I was not really good. I remember it used to take me about like 5 minutes to get this together. But I'm looking for an assistant. So if you're looking to be a part of the Whatever You Say podcast group, just hit us up at whateveryousay.info@gmail.com, or you can go on our website www.whateveryousay.com and send me your criteria, honey. Let's see what we have here. Almost done. All right, I'm going back on my page. All right. We're live. My niece is always like cracking on me. She's like, Auntie, you do just like same thing every show. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I'm a one-man band right now. So, like I said, we have a great guest on the show. I would like him to introduce himself to you guys because he can do a better job at it than myself. So let's give a hand clap for Ash Hudson. What's up? How are you today?
Doing good, doing great. I don't know if I'm the best introducer of myself in the world.
Why'd you say that?
Because a lot of people get stuck on things they done, and I'm always growing and exploring within myself. So many different journeys that I had the opportunity to be attached to, but I don't live in the journey. I'm always exploring. Even our journey, we met when you was an artist. I was directing videos, doing interviews, but there's so many other things that I had the opportunity to explore. And I always like to say, man, I am a growing, learning human. So that's why I say I'm not the best introducer of myself. So however you would like to introduce me into even Jay-Z, even though we know who we are, we know not who we may be. So I'm always focused on growing and becoming and learning. And I don't live in I, because I is never permanent. 5 years ago we was a different I.
Yes.
So growing, learning, healing, transforming, caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly. My wings are almost done. I'm literally in a space where it's like I see them. It's like, I just want to put them on, and I'm in that space. So hopefully that wasn't too much.
No, it's not too much. You say you see him and you want to put him on. So why don't you put him on?
Sometime on the out, like when people view who we are, where we are. Even when I talk to people are, oh man, you're everywhere. You're doing so much. You're doing this. You're doing that. And because I'm always trying to do, and it's not the fact that I don't allow myself to hold on things that I've accomplished. Because even with everything that I've done so far, I feel like I'm practicing. I feel like my son's journey was practice. I feel like Undeniable TV was practice. I feel like being an artist was practice. Being a producer was practice. And then you have the things in life, being a father, being a son, being a brother. And then whatever we are in totality, whether it's content, art, songs, music, when people have the opportunity to have pieces of what we are. So I think my next few endeavors, writing books, creating courses, traveling the world, this is going to be my wing stage where I finally, where people get the opportunity to see who I truly am and who I'm becoming. Because some people have the opportunity to meet me in parts of my life,
Yeah.
and people know that version of me, but I'm getting to know me, you know. I like literally as you were starting, I looked at myself like, look at you, you ain't nervous. You a professional now. And I'm talking to myself. I remember when I used to be so nervous and I used to be so afraid. So
Mm.
I'm literally finally able to process my whole entire self. So I call this, this is my wing stage.
Okay, and I guess I'm on my wing stage too because honestly, I still get nervous. Like we was having that discussion prior to the show starting, and I was saying that on my support page, letting people know that like I have to get more into. People see me as a socialite.
Mm-hmm.
Yet off camera, I'm at home. Nobody's in my house, but me and my son. I enjoy being home unless I'm put in a position to be in front of people. Even when I was performing, I was always nervous.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I want to conquer. I want to conquer being able to be comfortable speaking in front of groups of people. So we'll get into that eventually. But let's get into you instead of me. Can you tell us a bit about your personal journey?
Uh, I always say, man, if you have never been 100% completely honest out loud, then you have never been yourself in the presence of anyone. So a lot of times, when I share my journey, I go into the gut of my journey. Some people like to talk about the accomplishments, the things they had, the things they do, the things they have. One of the most pivotal parts of my life. I'm big on tapping into the soul and the most important things that challenge me to become, the person that I am today. So my journey, I would describe it, as a masterpiece. And I always say, don't judge the picture while the creator is still painting. So my life starts off, me being molested at 6 years old, foster homes, mental health facilities, having a difficult time in school. These are the outlines of a masterpiece. Sometimes when you're painting or you're drawing or you see somebody draw and you're like, what are they doing? Because you don't understand the picture. So growing in the beginning, not understanding my life, not understanding, why I had to suffer so much, why I had to go through so much pain, why I had to numb myself not to feel. But that was the college level of my journey. That's where most of my wisdom comes from. That's where most of my insight comes from. And that created just someone that was emotionally dehydrated, but someone that was starving and willing and ready to live life. So my journey is colorful, man. I'm a person that love to live and explore. Even when we started the interview, you was like, "Let me send you the questions." Even though because I always say emotion is energy in motion. So there's nothing wrong with being nervous. There's nothing wrong with being afraid. Wherever you are, that's where you are, and that is your life. That is your body responding to life. So I just value, the rawness and truth of life. A story, my story. So um, I value my childhood. I value the twists and turns of my childhood. I value my upbringing. I value being a father. I value meeting people in an open, honest, genuine space. I value being all of me. I never want to be in a space where, I stunt my growth because of accomplishments. So
Hmm.
this is why I'm big on speaking from where I am and speaking on the climb of where I'm going. So I had the opportunity to dibble and dabble in the music business. had the opportunity to be my son's manager, quote unquote, but at the same time, I just call it being a father and tapping into my son's happiness. I just followed his eyes, and wherever his eyes went, whenever they was full of joy, that's what we was doing. So many more things. If you have some specific questions, I could dive into, but my journey, is art.
And that it is, because I watched you grow, and I just want to commend you for just being a living example of how you can, rewrite your own journey, how you can start over from scratch and not give up, because that's one thing that has been hard for many people, is to like start over.
Mm-hmm.
Just myself being like having a show where I started with 3 other women, and I was like, I've seen people just fall by the wayside because of, life,
Mm-hmm.
things that they had to do, per se, to better themselves and to grow. And that's what the show is used for. Yet the show had to go on. And
Mm-hmm.
that was something for me. I was like, rewriting this story, starting over, rebranding, So, yeah, let's get into the questions. How did changing your mindset impact your mental and emotional wellness? And what tools did you use to help shift your mindset?
What tools am I using? Um,
If you want to call them that.
yeah, it's currently in action. For me, it was the opportunity to encounter love.
Mm,
Uh, I grew up in fear of feeling love. Every time I felt love or every time I heard love, love always came with pain. The first time I was introduced to love consistently was when my mother was beating me, right? So she would hit me and say, "I'm doing this because I love you."
mm.
And I think my mother used to hit me and try to make my father feel it, because I think like yeah, like I think I used to just trigger her, like, look at this, like, and like my father nowhere in the picture, but I think she used to
Mhm.
try to hit me so hard, and so even when it comes to healing, when it comes to tapping into a space where we could finally be free, whether we're just in our own journey, whether we're parents, whether we're in a relationship. So love was big for me. Seeing my son created such, a inner volcano to just trust. I just looked at grown-ups. I was gonna say, like, like racism. Like sometimes, like, white people may say we're just the N-word. We get thrown in one group, right?
Mhm.
Whether you're racist, or it's like the same way women look at men, like, oh, all men are this. Or when you go through a trauma or a traumatic event, or men may look at a certain category of women. I looked at adults that way. Like when
Mm,
you're violated as a child, everybody's an enemy. you
mm.
know so being molested, being abused mentally, physically, I looked at every adult, and I didn't trust them. Trust wasn't there. A connection wasn't there. So that fear created, you know uh just a gap in my development.
Yeah.
So my son was the big breakthrough of the adjustment. to
Mm.
love to love him, I had to learn how to love.
Wow.
So going on that journey of opening up and fighting myself, because my son also triggered, me not having a father. So that was the first initial steps, and of course therapy. And I would say therapy is mental maintenance. So being intelligent in your emotions is one thing. To react to life is another thing. To have the ability to be able to respond to life. So just because your day starts off bad don't mean you have to drag that and have a bad day. Just because your life starts off quote unquote bad doesn't mean you have to have a bad life. So learning, reading, allowing myself to feel, embracing my story, um, you know learning about psychology, tapping into the DSM. And this is like years of just different pockets and pieces of a journey. Learning how to value myself, learning how to value my mind, learning how to protect my mind, my body, my soul. Because, discipline plays a key part in a man's life. If you lack discipline, everything is going to, you're going to be infiltrated where you lack the discipline. So every time I try to work on myself, I would always give myself away because I couldn't control my sexual urges. I couldn't control, what I would do for quote unquote money, as far as like working in the music business. Even though I wasn't happy, I just did it because the money was easy. But
Mm.
when I learned how to shut everything down and I trust my gift, I trust my voice, I trust myself, I started to love myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I always say it's no such thing as being it's no such thing as being single. You're always in a relationship with yourself. So when I learned how to love myself, when I learned how to be loyal to myself, be faithful to myself, be committed with myself, nothing could infiltrate me
Mm.
because I value my own peace of mind and I value my life. So now it takes more than to look good or to have a nice body or to, I couldn't be infiltrated by temptation, whether that was physically, whether that was money, whether that was, so many different areas. But reading was impactful because, once you have the tools, now you have to find the rules,
Mm.
right? So whether you're talking about inner success, outer success, when you find peace, right, do you know how to maintain it? Because a lot of people say, yo, don't disturb my peace, right? But if your peace is so easily disturbed, do you really have peace, right? Do you know how to maintain the peace that you found? So just going on those journeys to find myself, define myself, and then refine myself, right? So I always say compete with your progress. When you see the best version of yourself, do you know how to duplicate that every day?
Now, you said something in regards to triggers from your mom when she would hit you. She says, "I'm doing this because I love you." Did you find yourself possibly attempting to do that to your son? Was that something you did, or was it something you wanted to shift from because you didn't like that form of love?
I did a complete demolition of my mother's parenting style,
Mm.
right? So if you see like the Twin Towers, you don't even see a remnants of the building,
Right.
right? So sometimes we grow up in pain and then we parent with the same pain that produced us. It was no way in the world I was going to create my son with the same rules that I suffered from. So I was freestyling. I was burning hot dogs. I was burning chicken nuggets. My son was out 4 in the morning. We just was lawless because I was learning.
Yeah.
But I trusted my ignorance more than I trusted the information that my mother raised me with, because
Me.
that's where I found it, right? So ignorance means you don't know. So I didn't know how to be a father, right? Of course I had Bill Cosby or like the shows I watch, but I never seen a father up close and personal, you know? So I had to pull from the pieces of things that I had in life. I had to render the negative conversations that I had trapped inside my own body, because when I realized I was one of the things the world hated, right? Because thinking about me being young and my friends, we all hated our fathers with our mother's voice. I ain't
Mm.
even know. I ain't even know the man. Oh, I hate him. You stupid, no good dog. You loser. Like, this was my mother speaking through me, right? I never had an opportunity. I never had an opportunity to get to know him. I never had an opportunity to see him, connect with him. So these wasn't my words. It wasn't my friend's words. So I had to get all of that out of me. I had to get Maury out of me. You are not the father, you know. And I had to learn how to be. I had to learn how to show up. I had to learn how to speak from where I was. I wasn't afraid to show my son if I didn't know. I wasn't afraid to mess up. I wasn't afraid to apologize. I wasn't afraid to cry. Like, my son knew all of me.
Mm.
Um, and I learned from just every year, every day. of what was beneficial, what wasn't beneficial, what wasn't healthy. And so that's what I mean. Like I just allowed the journey to become the parent kinda.
Nice. And what like barriers did you face along the way? If you faced any, I'm quite sure you faced some barriers, and how did you overcome them?
What barriers? One was when you raise a child without the rule book, everybody else he meet is gonna keep telling him about the rule book.
Mm,
Right? Because I raised my son so bold, I raised him so confident, I raised him so free, I raised him so mentally and emotionally strong that sometime that turns into, oh, don't talk back to an adult. But I always told my son, as long as you're being respectful, you can speak. As long as you're not being disrespectful. So if you told my son something wrong in school and he would interject, excuse me, well, Africa is a
mhm,
continent, and it doesn't look like it looks on television, and that wasn't for school. So he got in trouble for being right in situations where they didn't want you to be right.
mhm.
So that's why I wound up homeschooling my son. That's why I wound up watching and being with my son all day, because my mother didn't want to watch him because he didn't be quiet. You know what I'm saying? If he had something to say, he was going to say it, in a respectful way, even if it was me. Like, and it was so many times I had to check myself and I had to go back and we would spar. If he knew something, he would go back and we'd challenge each other to raise the bar with one another.
Mm,
So the barriers are, you know, when you raise the bar, you know, and the societal norms are to keep the bar low,
of course.
the world will challenge you, right? So, even creating a brand and traveling the world with my son, and I learned how to be emotionally strong because my son's image challenged the world. Oh,
Mhm,
this kid is reading a script. Oh, where's this? Oh, this son is a plant. This kid is a plant. This kid is white. This kid is this. This kid. So just seeing that, and even him, he used to get mad. Dad, why do you say I'm reading the script? To him, he ain't even saying nothing. He's dumbing himself down, like, but
mhm.
he's reading a script, and that's because, I remember we had the whole bed full of spelling words, and I used to just build his mind, and because I grew up and I couldn't write, read, and I graduated from high school with a diploma that I couldn't read. So I just wanted to create a better version of myself. So I love my son and I filled the voids of every area that I had. So those were the barriers to create strength in a world that thrives off you being weak.
I like that. I recall, there were times where, the teachers try to give him a hard time, and he was like, basically, let me take him out of the school because they're trying to tell my son that he's something he's not, and look where he ended up, and I wonder what those teachers thought when they eventually see him on TV. And allowing our children to have a voice, I think is very important. My son, I allow him to have a voice as well. Like you said, as long as he's not being disrespectful,
Mhm.
he's allowed to speak his mind. It's like we grew up in a society in urban communities where parents is like, um, you know, shut up, be a child, stay in a child's
So, ladies
place.
and cool,
What's a child's
you
place?
froze, right?
Am I?
You good now, but you froze.
Oh, okay. Like we grew up in a society and urban community where they say stay in a child's place. And what is a child's place? I'm still trying to figure that out. Like we are the first people that they learn from. And I want to know what's going on in your mind because if I don't teach you, then the world will. So
Mhm.
I'll be damned if I'm going to put my son out there like and allow the world to teach him before I do, or to be
Mhm.
the person that doesn't listen to him. And if the person that is listening to him is going to be someone on the outside of our home. So
Mhm.
it's nice if somebody is listening to him, but I like, why shouldn't I give him that same respect? So
And I want you to know that that didn't happen confidently. I didn't just say, "Oh, let me homeschool him." That was many
mm,
days of tears. That was many days of worrying. That was many days of anxiety. Because my son went to the same elementary school that I got kicked out and went to the foster
wow.
home from. So
Wow.
literally he literally was in my same class where I used to throw books, where I used to jump on the desk. And I was also kicked out of like 5 different elementary schools, you know. So I always say, it's important to learn the layers. So it was very easy for people to see me and say I was a bad kid. I needed to be in special ed, I needed medicine. But they didn't
Mm,
know that same kid was molested and went to school, and I went home and I was afraid to tell my mother because my mother used to beat me so much that I thought I was going to be in trouble, right? So how does it you know how does that render in a 6-year old's mind? How do you land emotions that you haven't even developed? Like, you're still processing, you're still learning, you're still growing. So when your childhood is interrupted, and you're in panic and worry and fear and anxiety. So my outside behavior was me trying to cope.
mm,
I did not know how to communicate that pain. I did not know how to speak uh these things that I was going through. And I always say, we're feedback.
yeah.
So even I put up a quote the other day that women say, how could you disrespect women when you come from a woman? But it's important to understand that most of what a lot of men go through because of the dynamic, and by no means am I trying to trigger anyone, but a lot of young men are being raised by their mothers. And like I said, in my dynamic, my mother putting me in the corner, beating me, yelling at me. And so a lot of my pain and hatred and animosity and anger came from my mother. I learned how to hate because of my mother. My mother didn't let me talk. She ain't let me hug. She ain't let me feel. The only thing I was allowed to express was anger. So when men are on the internet or sharing, or you see young men with so much anger, right? I'll say emotion is energy in motion. It's a reason that a tea kettle has a hole. So children and men and people, when you're suppressed, when you're depressed, it's important to learn how to decompress. If not, we are all walking volcanoes. So this is why when it comes to us being parents, or when it comes to us being husbands and wives or boyfriends and girlfriends, if you don't deal with that childhood trauma, if you don't deal with the pain of yesterday, if you don't deal with what took place in your household, and your house still has a hold on you, and you're still showing up with that same pain, animosity, fear, we're representations of that trauma that we've been through.
Mm. And that's going on a lot in today's society. That's why today is such a touchy subject.
Mm-hmm.
And it might alter some emotions to come out of people, because I believe that quite a few people can relate to your story, especially growing up in an urban community. I think a lot of mothers were like that. In what ways did inner work play a role in your transformation, and what specific practices did you find most helpful?
Um, your eyes don't see, your mind sees. So when you develop your mind, everything you see changes. So I always say your perception and perspective controls your reality. So things that used to trigger me, things that I thought I just didn't like because I didn't like, people that I thought I didn't like, environments that I thought I didn't like, movies and information, it was because of the trauma that I've been through. So if I never healed the pain that I experienced through my mother, and now I hate women, I have misplaced anger towards women. And it's not women, it's the inner pain that I never addressed. The anger inside of me was the anger of my upbringing, the anger that my father wasn't there, that no one ever told me they loved me, hugged me, cared. So the transformation, and when I had access to the information, it changed my experiences. So when you learn how to love yourself, when you learn how to show up for yourself, when you learn um, to process and comprehend the information, right? So it's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is just the information. So you can have a book, you could take a course, you can have a life coach, you could watch a movie, you could watch a music video, you could read an article, you could read a blog, a website post or whatever. That is just the information. But now when you have the wisdom should actually change your life, because now you took the information and now you turned the information into a lifestyle. So the transformation allows me to show up differently, because now I recognize the things that triggered me, and I don't let the triggers control me. And I can recognize and identify when I'm triggered. I can recognize and identify and separate um, my deep wounded trauma from things that I'm going through in the world. And now I know how to respond instead of react to life. Because when I was in survival mode, I was just reacting to life out of fear. Now I show up with love. Now I try my best to show up with empathy and compassion, and I try my best not to take things personal, but at the same time I do respect and protect myself. So I protect myself from people that I recognize and identify that are struggling just like me. So
Mm.
sometimes, people may say cut off or separate or remove or disconnect. If I don't feel safe around you, I will create distance, you know, and that is because I love, and I don't ever want to trigger someone that I love, and I don't ever want someone that's learning themselves to trigger me. So the respect that I have, that like distance could be space or time, and when you come back and you allow yourself to spar with the newness that distance or time showed you, so it's those simple things, those simple strategies and techniques. When you learn about the mind, the body, the soul, it's one thing to drive a vehicle, it's another thing to learn the mechanics of the vehicle, why and how it operates. So sometimes people worry about washing the car every day and getting armor all on the tires, and they don't get a tune up. If you ain't taking care of the inside and the engine and the mechanics. So sometimes we worry about how we look and filters in our face, and we ain't taking care of our mind, our body, our souls. People not going to the doctor, they're not getting checkups, they ain't taking care of their teeth. And you got to take care of yourself to the core. How is your mind? How is your soul? How is your heart? So I have these conversations with myself on a daily basis to make sure I'm checking in on myself, to make sure that I operate with one me. I don't want to be 10 me's, a different me for everybody I know. I never want to talk to someone and remember who I was pretending to be. One me. My mother noticed one me, my son noticed one me, my queen noticed one me, my friends noticed one me. And
Right.
wherever um, those perspectives of who I am and who I'm trying to be, I'm big on being that for myself.
I
So,
like that. I like that. When you talk about people just focus on the outer, they want to get the armor all, they want to get
mhm,
everything fixed on the outside, but they don't want to work on the internal work. And I'm reading this book right now. It's called The Path to Prosperity, and it was just in the second chapter. It was speaking about just cleaning up your house
mhm,
as well, making sure like everything is clean from the top to the bottom, appreciating what you have, not separating yourself from people, but being mindful of the people you keep around in your
mhm.
space and being mindful of the words that you speak into your life as well. So when it comes to the healing process and the internal work, like everything is important as well. The external is important too. Like I feel like the appearance is good as well, but like it has to match, the external has to match the internal, so.
Yeah, the outside attracts, the inside keeps.
Mm, say that again one time for
Yeah,
your
you know,
mind.
the outside attracts, the inside keeps. If you are a
Yeah.
beautiful person on the inside, if you are a loving, caring person on the inside, if you are a genuine person on the inside, you are a healthy person mentally, emotionally, physically. That's what allows you to keep and maintain a relationship. You may be
Mm,
attractive, you may look good, the pictures, the Instagram clips, wow, she's beautiful. But as
yeah.
soon as you talk, or as soon as someone see your regimen or the way you talk to other people or the way you even treat yourself,
Mm,
nobody want to be around you know negative energy, dead energy, untrained energy.
Right.
unfocused energy. So, work on the inside if you want to
Right.
keep something on the outside.
I agree. I remember there was a time, once upon a time, I reached out to you and I apologized because I know I was going through some things once upon a time in my life. And I just think that I was like, I wouldn't allow anybody to speak.
Mhm.
I didn't notice that. I was just going through so much. I just wanted people to hear what I had to say. And I think it's important.
It's called filibustering.
Filibustering.
You used to filibuster. You used to go on tangents, like. But for the most part, I used to try to listen. But I'm happy. I'm happy. Like you gave me a tug of war while I was saying it. But if it landed, I'm grateful.
It always lands. You helped me to get back to where I needed to be. So I appreciate you. And it's important to have people like you in our lives. At the same time, you want to appreciate those people, and you don't want to take them for granted as
Mhm.
well. And like you said, therapy is a beautiful thing, and you just want to make sure you utilize those tools so you won't have to take your friends through them because they are not your counselors, honey.
And one thing, like, because I hurt when people that I love hurt.
Yeah.
So it even triggers me, regardless if it's about me or the person that I care about. Friends, family, and that's one of the most difficult things. Like
Yeah.
when someone you love become a stranger.
Mm.
Because you can't even give them the antidote of what they need. Right. So you trigger them by telling them what they need to do. They trigger you by not doing what they need to do. Right. So it's like, man, I gotta let you go.
I gotta let you
And,
go.
and, and, and you hope the distance don't you hope the distance you hope you don't watch them sink.
Mm.
Right. but
Right.
but unfortunately, man, sometime in the sinking, people learn how to swim.
Yes.
And
Because I
you
drowned.
and we could be no, swimming is if you learned the lesson, that is the blessing.
But
Drowning,
I drowned and I got back up.
okay, well, as long as the information was found
Yeah.
whether in the water, out the water. Drowning doesn't mean drowned.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
like 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 if you could say I was drowning, that mean, okay, you're breathing right now, okay, you
Right.
didn't
I
drown.
was drowning.
So it's nothing wrong with drowning. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like dying. Are you dead? No.
No.
you know, like I was healing, I was
Mm.
growing, I was learning. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to understand. If you are processing, then that's the process.
Yeah.
Right. And it's okay. It's like our processes are like cars. Everybody ain't gonna have a Rolls Royce.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So my process may be first grade level, but that don't mean like once I get to where I need to be, my vehicle, like you may pass everybody that was once past you. And that's the key.
She said, "Speak that word, brother. That's my mother."
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey,
How you doing?
mom. Hey, mom. Oh, thank you. It's my beautiful mom. So let's go on to the next question. What advice would you give someone who is struggling with self-doubt and negative self-talk?
Here's some of the DSM, the diagnostic manual. Understanding, it's something called neurological pathways. Neurological pathways are basically, technology mimics human behavior. So you have a digital algorithm and you have a mental algorithm. So your mental algorithm, when it comes to vocabulary, right? So when it comes to the words that you're speaking to yourself, whether you're triggered into saying these words or whether these are the only words that you know towards yourself, it's important that you learn new words, that you learn a new approach, and understand that every word has a picture and an emotion attached to it. If I told you to write down the words that you feel about yourself, draw a picture when it comes to those words, you know, what category or what direction will those words take you in? It's important to speak life. It's important to speak love. It's important to speak healing. It's important to speak growth, right? Because these words create your reality. Your reality creates your destiny. Your destiny is intertwined with your mind, your heart, your body, your soul. So it's important to really stop and think about the relationship that you have with yourself. Um, I had a lot of bottled up negative energy, negative vibration, negative images, because when I talk about household, my mother used to beat me, tell me she loved me. My mother used to tell me what I was, what I wasn't, and those were the only words that I knew towards myself. What my mother used to say, what my environment used to say, what teachers used to say. So I became those words. I became cold. I became numb. I became hard because I was in survival mode. But I want you all to know that it is important. The same way that you learn a song by heart is something called the 2190 rule. It takes 21 days to create a new habit. It takes 90 days to turn that habit into behavior. So learning how to reprogram your brain and create a new conversation in your mind, and every day speak life and speak love into yourself. When you wake up in the morning, when you go to bed at night, and understand that life is a language and conversations control your destiny. So even the people you around, the television shows that you're watching, the social media platforms, the people that you follow, take those conversations and ask, what is it doing to your body? What is it doing to your mind? What is it doing to your soul? And if those conversations are not love, if those conversations doesn't make you feel alive, doesn't make you feel whole, it's time to start to delete and do an emotional audit. Do an emotional audit on yourself. Do an emotional audit when it comes to your friends, when it comes to what you're watching, when it comes to go through your phone, look at the text messages, go through your social media accounts. A lot of people say they hate social media or Instagram or Facebook. You have to understand that Instagram and Facebook starts off with a clear slate. You don't follow anyone. But now if you choose to follow negative people, if you choose to follow negative energy, if you choose to follow things that trigger you, you have to understand that that's you being an accomplice to your own misery. Unfollow some of those things that trigger you. Unfollow some of those things that bring you pain. Unfollow some of those things that keep you stuck in a mental box. And follow things that inspire you. Follow people that motivate you. Follow conversations that challenge you. And unfollow those same conversations inside yourself.
Mm,
Unfollow your old mindset. A lot of times we hear you lost your mind, or you losing your mind is a negative. I was so blessed to lose my mind because my old mind was suicidal. My old mind was chaotic. My old mind was negative. So losing that mind was the best thing that I could do for myself.
mm.
So those are the keys, understanding, reprogramming everything, the phone, the computer, your friends, and surround yourself with love on every level.
What role does self compassion play in your path towards wellness?
Mm. Learning that it was okay to love myself, learning that it was okay to cry. Because again, when you talk about neurological pathways and you talk about the program that I had installed in me, that crying was weak, that I was soft, that I was acting like a little girl if I cried. So I had to reprogram that and understand that it was okay to cry. It was okay to feel. I always say, feel your feelings, but don't become them. So when I learned how to tap into myself and love myself and care for myself, that gave me a deeper love for everyone else. So it was hard to love people when I didn't love myself. It was hard to see value in others when I didn't see value in myself.
Mm,
Even when we talk about a relationship is nothing but human behavior, right? So if my behavior is cold, heartless, painful, dramatic, if I speak to myself negatively, this is what I'm giving to my partner, right? So now in this relationship is negative self-talk, is doubt, is fear, is chaotic because this is what I am.
yeah.
So the minute I change those things, now I see the value, I speak value and love into myself. So
Mm,
this changed me. So the reason I can give love, the reason I have empathy, the reason that I am emotionally available, because I am available for my emotions, and I value my own process. So now this allows me to have empathy for someone else's process. And I don't take everything serious, and I understand that everything is not about me. And I'm willing to help, and I'm willing to share, and I'm willing to inspire. And I see people the way I see myself. So in situations where people are not, people don't have balance, I'm able to try my best to provide that balance. Sometimes people don't know what they need in a moment because they're chasing what they want. But
Mm,
as soon as that fog clears, if that information can connect, it will wake up inside of them. Like
mm,
Tupac had a line, they planted seeds and they hatch, sparking a flame inside my brain like a match, right? Just because you don't get it today don't mean you won't get it tomorrow.
you're right. Well, you planted a lot of seeds that eventually grew. And so, I mean, I think it's very important, even if, you have to walk away from people, but as long as you left them with something that they can take with them along the way, it will come back up. Because there's so much advice that my father has given me when I was younger that resonated as I got older. And I would hear his voice just playing in my head. You can't worry about tomorrow today.
Mm-hmm.
And like certain things like that. So I think it is important, even though someone may not get it today, it'll be utilized when it's needed. So
That's the
that
biggest thing. That's the biggest thing.
you said what?
No, I said that's the biggest thing. It's the same thing. Like, think about our parents when they bought us the big coat that we were going to keep for 2 years, and they said you're gonna grow it. You're gonna grow into that coat. You know what I'm saying? So that's how we got to do with information.
Mhm.
And be love and give love. Like, love is not dictating the growth of what the love is, right? So that's even in nature. You can give. Sometimes we feel bad and we judge people. I told you already. I already showed you that, right? Because we want to see the results from what we said, right?
Right, instant
If
growth.
your words are water, if the information you're sharing is the sunlight, you have to understand that you can't force growth just because you pour water on something,
Yeah,
right? If you plant a flower outside, you could pour all the water you want. You could give it all the sunlight. That plant is going to grow when it's supposed to grow, right? So just because someone is not what you want them to be doesn't mean that they're not growing.
yeah,
So empathy and compassion, not saying that we're supposed to sit around waiting for people, because
right.
you can go through a lot of pain waiting for someone to grow, right? And sometimes you may water someone.
Too much.
No, no, right? You may water someone to watch them grow without you,
Mm.
right? And you could take it. You could look. Oh, look at all. Oh, now you want to be healed. Like and
Yeah,
that and they may become everything you once hope, wish, and prayed them to be.
for someone else.
Right? That that wasn't your flower,
Yeah.
right? And your flower probably getting on somebody's nerve right now. And somebody probably watering them, and
Mm.
whatever the case. Like, I'm somebody damaged roots. But people invested in me, man. People poured into me, but I ain't get the water at the moment.
Do you think some people can be overwatered?
Yeah, water kills flowers. You know, because think about it. Everything has a processor, right? Cell phone has a processor, computer has a processor, and depending on what brand you buy, you may take all day. You have an iPhone and an Android, like, man, what is, right? Two different processors.
Mm-hmm.
So emotional intelligence, again, when it comes to you equipping yourself to be able to recognize the process of someone else,
Mm.
right? If you buy the lemon, you can't expect new car energy. You bought the lemon.
Right.
It's a used car. It got damages, right? So damaged people don't mean that they're not good, or they won't be, who they can be or what their potential, um, like But to have the patience and empathy, like, we have to learn to do that with grace, right? Because when you overstand, you're held accountable for the people who don't understand,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are the pilot of your life and you say, this is my passenger, and they don't know how to fly, you are responsible for keeping the plane in the air. And you can't blame them if the plane crash, because you had the information to keep the flight safe, right? So when
Right.
people are like, oh, you did this and you did that, but you knew more, so you were responsible for the
Right.
destination,
Right.
right? So I
Right.
say, when you overstand, you're held accountable for the people who don't understand. So it starts with your choice. Some people choose out of comfortability, right? Because when you choose damage, you are when you choose damage, you control the damages. Meaning, like, sometimes people choose people with low self-esteem. Sometimes
Mm.
people choose people that they can control, because the healed person, the balanced person, the person that's on your level or above, now you are the person that need help now,
When
right?
you knew this from the beginning, you knew this person had those problems and you still took it on. And now you're looking
Yeah,
at them, mad at them, wanting them to change. But it's like, you knew this from the start.
yeah. It's our job to do a diagnostics.
Mm.
You can't settle and complain at the same time.
Ooh. Listen, you throw them gems out there. I hope somebody catching them. Cannot
Yeah.
settle and complain at the same time. Okay? You know the manual.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh goodness. In your opinion, what is the most important step someone could take towards changing their narrative and creating a new life story?
Bingo. Look, accountability is the highest level of self-love.
Mm.
A lot of people hear accountability as a negative, right? So even in my one-on-one sessions, and people go, oh, he did this, or he did this, or she did this, and I say, it's your fault, right? It's your fault,
Woo!
right? Because, look, I said this on one of my posts the other day. If you're in a garden and you pick apples and you take the apples home and you realize they're rotten, you can't blame the apples for being rotten.
Mm-mm.
You chose them.
You chose the rotten apple. You didn't, or you didn't even look. You didn't even like check to see if it was in the
I
bag.
do that sometime in the supermarket. I be in a rush and I be like, man, what? Right? It's my fault. I can't yell at the apple.
You was in a rush. You know, should have took your time.
Right? You
Mm-hmm.
are accountable for your soul. You are accountable for your body. You are accountable for your mind. You are accountable for your heart. Sometimes we give our body without making sure this person can be accountable, or they're emotionally intelligent enough to handle our heart. Right? So that's why I say your body was in a relationship, but your soul was single.
Ooh.
Right? So even in a relationship, you have to think about it, right? Is this relationship good for my mind? Is this relationship good for my body? Is this relationship good for my heart? Is
Mm.
this relationship good for my soul?
All my single ladies. All my single ladies. I hear
Right?
that. Put your hands up. I know y'all out there.
So, and that's why relationships crash, because you have men dating bodies and women dating bank accounts.
Ooh.
You know, and if you date what you want and not what you need, you can't complain about not receiving what you needed, because you
Mm-mm.
didn't make that a priority. So accountability in your personal life, accountability in your relationships, accountability in your business, everything is your fault, right? Because when we can put things on other people, we don't grow,
Oh yeah, of course. Of course.
right?
It's so easy to put it on someone else. And
Yeah.
it's so funny you say that because shout out to I gotta get y'all on a show together, but shout out to Trill AC. He said the same thing the last show. He was saying accountability is a part of self-love.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's deep. I don't know if y'all talking to me or if y'all talking to the people, because I'm like, this is confirmation. And we got one last question for you. Listen, we would love to keep you forever. Just box you up and keep you in the show. But we got one last show. How can listeners take the lessons learned from your journey and apply them to their own? Or should they?
That's tricky,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm learning even in psychology, right? The diagnostic manual talks about the parts and the pieces of us as individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a car. Like you can have the driver's manual or you can have the manual of the vehicle. But now when you have impact changes the conditions of the vehicle, right? So my pain is different from your pain in the way your pain impacted you. So my solutions may be your nightmare, your solutions may be my nightmare. So for everyone, right? I always say this, right? You can't hold on and jump at the same time.
Mm.
Find every area of life. Find every area of life. Life makes you feel alive. Life makes you feel good. Life makes you feel free, right? So sometimes it takes time, dedication, focus, and discipline to find life in a partner, right? The person that makes me feel alive, the person that makes me feel loved, the person that makes me feel whole, the person that makes me feel safe.
Yeah.
That is life in a human, right? Now you find life in your business, right? Like are you doing the thing that make you feel alive, that make you feel whole, that make you feel complete? Find life in everything that you're doing. Find love in everything that you're doing. Find a connection in everything that you're doing. So I always say add vice, right? If it works, add it. If it don't, delete it. Right? Add vice. If it works, add it. If it don't, delete it. So that's why I say it's difficult to take what I'm talking about with my journey and my story, because the things that I did for me helped me, right? But treat yourself like you are the person that you are in a relationship with. Have boundaries with yourself, because one thing that we do, we create boundaries from pain. People be like, oh, my past relationship was this, so now I got these boundaries. But your boundaries, this is how my boundaries start, right? So when I say, man, I was molested at 6 years old, foster home, mental health facilities, my boundaries are created from my childhood, right? I suffer from abandonment issues. I know when I interact with people, places, and things that I need reassurance, I need empathy, right? These are my boundaries, and I'm not mad at someone that can't give love.
Right.
You know, some people love on a first grade level and some people love on a college level. We
Mm.
can't control people. People going people. You know, what we control is the access that we allow people to have. You know, you control who has access, you control who has your contact number, who like that is like when you look at the world, you look at America, you look at different states. America has laws. This is how they protect um, the population. When you go to work, your workspace have policies. This is how they protect the employees. When it comes to your mind, body, heart, and soul, your boundaries are the law of your being, right? So the reason you need boundaries is to keep people at a distance that may bring you harm, right? The reason you need boundaries because you need to make sure that people qualify to have access to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it is allowing yourself to go on a journey with yourself. It is allowing yourself to fall in love with yourself. I always say, if you have never been 100% completely honest out loud, then you have never been yourself in the presence of anyone, right?
Mm.
I'll repeat that again. If you have never been 100% completely honest out loud, then you have never been yourself in the presence of anyone. So
Mm.
sometimes we know the version of us that's in the dark. We're sad, we're not happy, we right, but now we show up in the world and we be who the world think we're supposed to be. Show up as the person that gets an honest reaction that will heal the hurt you, right?
Mm.
And that's that. Like, you have to show up as yourself, you have to fall in love with yourself, and you have to allow yourself to see yourself. You know how, like, when you got your phone and it catch you making a random face,
Yeah.
and we be like, oh, you catch yourself off guard. That's how it is in life. When you catch yourself living, like, be okay with every version of yourself,
Right.
because people in the world see that part of you. You may not see you, but be okay with the you that you neglect, because that's the only way you can work on that part of yourself.
We have some comments here. Um, so we got Quadria. Shout out to Quadria Marie. She said, "Damn,
my
real
my
stuff.
my,
Thank
my old employee.
and my bestie. There are real stuff to think about. Are your soul and body matching? Are you yoked together with your partner? We
Mhm.
got Karita said 100% about accountability. Miriam Williamson says this in Return to Love. And then Quadria said it can be a lifetime to see all of the above. And
Mhm.
we have Mother T, Daughter J, so true. We just want to uh, thank Dash for being on the show today. He gave us so many gems to apply to our lives. I hope some of you guys were taking notes. This is going to be recorded, so you can go back to Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple after this to listen in or just watch visibly. And before you go, let them know where they could find you, and if you want to leave them with some last words, here's your stage to do so.
First, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for doing what you're doing. I want to thank you for being a light. Even though I don't think I'm that much older than you, but seeing you grow on your journey, I want you to stay focused. I want you to stay balanced. And again, like, fall in love with all of you. And I wish you nothing but success on your journey, Miss Latoya, because I always call you Phrase or whatever. But I
That's
wish you the best. I wish you the best on your journey. Keep going. Dash Hudson on Dash Hudson underscore on TikTok, Facebook. No, Dash Hudson on Facebook. Dash Hudson underscore on Instagram. So I'm gonna try my best to keep this content going on YouTube every day. The people that follow me ask me for podcast, YouTube. But I'm getting everything right. So it's really it. If I could leave you guys with anything, let me see what speaks to my soul. I'll give you guys this thought that I had earlier. Value the libraries in your life. Okay. What I mean by that is your grandmother, your grandfather, your parents, the wisdom that lives inside of them is untapped information that they can only give you. Okay. So sometimes we think libraries are just a building, but the libraries in your life is the wisdom of your DNA, right? Because you are the first person you ever came from. And your parents, your grandparents, and you are becoming a library to your children, because this is what this generation lacks. We don't have the grandmothers and the grandfathers to give us the wisdom to stay balanced. So just like it's a generation that know what it feels like before social media, but it's also a generation that don't know what life is without social media, right? So the generation that know what it feels like without it, we are a library of that wisdom, right? So I want you to value all the libraries. So even if it's just a grandmother and not your grandmother, sit down and get some of that wisdom. Sit down and get some of that energy, because they are walking libraries. So I'll leave you guys with that message.
And just want to thank Dash again for being on the show. Learn to value yourself more, people. Oh, these locks we get in my way. Learn to value yourself more. Be the library to someone's life. And listen, it's a wrap for another episode of Whatever You Say. Hopefully, you enjoyed the conversation, learned something new, and even had your perspective challenged in some kind of way. If you loved what you heard today, make sure to tune in every other Wednesday for a brand new episode. And in 2 more weeks, we're going to have Alize Johnson of the NBA Spurs on the show. So tune in for that show. That's going to be a great show. And if you want some more content, make sure you tune in to like, share, and to subscribe. And don't forget to click on that notification bell to stay tuned in to what's going on next time. As always, it's your girl La. Stay curious, stay open minded, and keep exploring. It's whatever you say. Have a great night.